In light of climate change, talk about that a little bit in terms of the range of issues that cities face in dealing with climate change.
Sure. I mean, as a touchstone, I worked closely with the mayor of Madison back in the early 2000s, who was very much a green mayor. And he would talk, Dave Cheslevich would talk often about, if we want to solve broadly writ environmental problems, we have to get our communities right to take pressure off of the places that we want to preserve in a more natural state, and to give ourselves a fighting chance to have a good quality of life. And so the issues from adapting to climate change impacts are huge. A few hundred yards from where we are now, there are people that are living in tents just behind a levee on a river that has a history of flooding. So insecure housing connects with exposure to weather. Some of our most vulnerable people in our communities, the ones that are usually out of sight, out of mind, or even pushed out, as we've done here in this town with putting our homeless shelter at the edge of town, right? Like, these are people that I think maybe socially we feel guilt or shame that their needs aren't met. And so they end up in marginal spaces. And those are often places that are not developed because they're not safe to live in. So that's one example that is perhaps extreme to some people because it's not their lived experience. But just over the last 10 years here in Lawrence, I mean, we have more and more high pulse rain events and longer periods of drought. We're in one now. The river right behind us is really low right now. The average citizen may not feel that and see that in their daily life, but people's skin's drier right now because we haven't had rain in a while. I mean, and asthma, right, and allergies. Those are going crazy for people right now.
So would you say that flood and drought and those localized precipitation events, in terms of a Midwestern city like Lawrence on a river, that's the biggest impact of climate change that they have to deal with, do you think?
Those are typically the most acute, fast onset disasters. Floods and droughts are highly visible. Public health is much less visible day in and day out. But when it's hotter, you can have more air quality problems. And that then results in higher rates of asthma, especially pediatric asthma or elderly people with asthma. So public health is a huge piece that I think we're only really beginning to talk seriously about now. The disaster piece, especially hurricanes, we're seeing that, the supercharging of Harvey, the supercharging of Ian, Maria, Katrina. I mean, we're having these devastating events. Sandy, they're always unprecedented, 1,000-year, this, that, the other. That's because when we plan for climate change, we're looking backwards too much. The climate is changing such that our past observations and predictions, there's more uncertainty moving forward. Inequity is the biggest problem tied in with climate change, full stop. I mean, it's inequity because people who have resources can wall up, either by moving away or flying away when there's a power outage, these kind of things. People with less resources just have to buckle under.